Inviting me to come and share my work with this group, and I think I responded like within like 5 minutes, right? Like typically when I get responses to speak in various places, you know, I typically have a 24-hour rule where, you know, I sort of check my calendar and sort of see if it makes sense for me to travel and all that stuff. But this particular invitation was especially appealing to me because I really like sharing my work with audiences where it will make a difference, and I have not been invited, interestingly, to talk to a mixed group of parents and students previously. So, you know, I have these implications from my work, some insights and perspectives that might be useful to parents, but no one's ever invited me to actually share those insights with parents. So I am really honored that the two of you invited me to be here. I do want to sort of offer a disclaimer here. Much of my work, almost all of it, focuses on black male success in college. So the examples that I will give, in large part, will be reflective of that particular work. However, I will say that the kinds of strategies and insights that I'm going to share here is certainly applicable to other groups, black women, other students of color, and so on. But I am going to talk a bit about the work that I do on black male success, if that's okay. All right. So listen, let me tell you about my approach before we go a little further. I am a pretty laid back professor, right? Like I'm not going to stand here and like talk at you for an hour. In fact, I would much prefer a more fluid discussion. So throughout, you know, as I go through these slides, if you have questions or if you sort of want to dialogue with me or, you know, say something that might benefit the larger group, I invite you to do that, all right? This would be a disaster if I talked the whole time. And plus it's Saturday morning, right? Like technically this is my day off. So, I want this to feel like that, like a discussion instead. I love to start these kinds of talks with this particular slide, which, you know, is a familiar statistic. We hear all sorts of statistics about black males, about black students, about students of color, and so on. But here is one that is actually one of my favorites. The Urban Prep Academy in Chicago, which is a charter school for black boys. When you go to the Urban Prep website, here's the first thing you see. Research shows that only 1 in 40 African American boys will complete college. And as you can see in the image, there's the one guy with 39 empty desks around him, right? This is the typical thing that we hear about black male students. What's interesting, though, is that within 5 seconds on the Urban Prep website, the image switches to this. Research shows that only 1 in 40 African American boys will complete college. At Urban Prep, we believe all our graduates will. I think this is such a profound statement of high expectations. So you will hear me talk throughout this presentation about the importance of high expectations. Now certainly, we would all benefit if schools here in Camden and over in Philadelphia, where I live, had such high expectations for their students, but that's another discussion for another time. But I am going to talk here about having high expectations for ourselves, for the youngsters who are here, but also for the parents who are here as well. I do want to, just for a moment, only because I was asked to, share just some really quick stats about black male student success in college. I promise to make this really quick. So these national trends that I'm going to share are from a policy report that I published for a policy think tank in Washington, D.C. About 4 years ago. One of the things that I report in the actual publication is that in 2002, black men comprised only 4.3% of college students, the exact same as in 1976. So while the number of black women and Latinos and Asian Americans and other groups, even whites, has increased in college, the number for black males has stayed the same, as pretty much flatlined. So we need to get more brothers into college, right? That's an argument that I often make, that I will continue to make until we see some movement here. Another thing that I report is that, so there are more white women than white men in college. There are more Puerto Rican women than Puerto Rican men in college. So there's a gender gap for all racial and ethnic groups, but the gap is widest among black students, with black women outnumbering their black male counterparts on some campuses at a ratio of 2 to 1, but nationally by about 27.2 percentage points. So that would suggest to us that even when black girls and black boys grow up in similar family circumstances, similar socioeconomic circumstances, and so on, that more black women go on to college than black boys. Unfortunately, more than 2/3 of black men who start college do not graduate. So in my work, I really emphasize that yes, it is important to get more black men and black women to college. But if they don't graduate 4, 5, or 6 years later, then it's pretty pointless, right? Especially with these brothers, 67.6%, that's huge. So these guys get to college, drop out, oftentimes have student loan debt. Because they don't have their college degrees, they can't really gain access oftentimes to high-paying jobs that will enable them to pay back those student loans. And then they default on the loans and their credit is bad, and it just sort of perpetuates a cycle of poverty that perhaps could actually be more devastating than before they came to Rutgers, Camden, for example, and dropped out and accrued all this debt. Really quickly here, I'm finishing up this policy report for the Congressional Black Caucus that's coming out at the end of May. And it's about black male students at public colleges and universities. So every public college and university across each of the 50 states. So for example, Rutgers, Camden would be included in this report. And I'm awarding letter grades to these colleges and universities across 6 different success indicators and access indicators for black male students. I'm going to give you just a few here, 3 to be exact. One thing that I found is that over a 14-year period, for an increase in every 1 black male student, there's been an increase in 5 of his white male peers, right? So as colleges and universities talk about sort of becoming more diverse and a commitment to access and so on, yes, in fact, they are increasing access, but the question is increasing access for whom, right? Another is, so I shared with you in the previous slide that nationally, more than 2/3 of black men who start college don't finish. At the public universities, the 6-year graduation rate for black male students is about 32% compared to 46% for students overall. And I know this may shock you, but despite being only 2% of the undergraduate students at colleges and universities, black males are 64% of basketball players and about 56% of football players. So these colleges and universities can do a good job of finding brothers to come and play sports, right? But not other ways of increasing their access to the institution. And then also black male student athletes actually graduate at a lower rate than their white male counterparts. When this report comes out, I will make sure that it makes its way to your hands, and that I hope that you will send it out and share it with others. These are public institutions, right? Which means that they are in part funded by taxpayer dollars. So I would encourage you to be outraged by these kinds of barriers to college access and success, and to sort of rally your particular groups, be it your churches, Delta Sigma Theta, and other groups, to really sort of push institutional leaders and legislators and so on to hold institutions more accountable. All right, so I'm done. Oh, actually, I'm not done with that. Okay, so one more. So about the college dropout statistic, this one, and then the 2/3 that I mentioned on the previous slide. Certainly, there is much that can be used to explain why black males do so poorly in college. Disengagement is one of them. So there's this study that was done, I guess about 14 years ago now, that found that black men, in comparison to black women, take fewer notes in class, spend less time writing papers and completing major assignments, participate less frequently in campus activities, hold fewer leadership positions, and report lower grades in college.